Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. So a lot of people want to work in big tech, and by big tech I mean the used to be called FAANG companies, now called MANGA companies, and people want to work there for very legitimate reasons like the high salary, the perks, the high caliber of people, learning opportunities, being on the cutting edge of technology, all very valid reasons. But in this video we're going to talk about the opposite. We're going to talk about why you may not actually want to work in big tech. Alright, let's go. Number one is ethics. I really cannot not talk about ethics. I'm sure you've heard at least one of these scandals that big tech companies have gotten into in the past few years. Are they valid? Well, I think yes. In my opinion, these companies did really start off wanting to do good and to change the world for the better. However, the lack of regulations and the unintended huge significant impact that they ended up having in the world, there just wasn't any precedence for the things that now we can see is causing a lot of issues. Without going into too much detail because I'm not allowed to, I do know that there are both internal and external pushes to drastically change the way that these big tech companies are functioning. But honestly, at a scale this large, it's really hard to see changes happen very quickly. Unless you come into the company at a really high level, like if you're very senior, you may be able to influence a lot of people. But as evidenced by these articles over here, which I'll link below, you're coming in, at like a entry level or mid-level product manager, data scientist, something like that. It's really hard to influence that massive amounts of change internally. And this is for several different reasons. The first one is that it's really easy to get lost in the sea of day-to-day tasks, and unless it's like actually your job just to change the ethical issues that are there, it's hard to focus on these hard, difficult problems in addition to the stuff that you're already doing. Another reason is that huge problems require huge paradigm shifts throughout the company. And as I mentioned earlier, unless you're like at a very high seniority level, it's hard to get buy-in from everybody around you and make these huge changes that will likely impact the top line and operational efficiency. Because a lot of these practices are just super ingrained into all aspects of the company. I do want to point out that by working in a big tech company, you will get pointed questions asking about, things that are happening related to your company. Your stocks may go completely wild when there's like certain news that comes out. And speaking of the news, you are likely to have your company being featured in the news like at least once a week for something that has happened. So if these are things that will bother you and you think will cause a lot of stress and anxiety, you may want to stay away from working at a big tech company. Next reason for why you may not want to work at a big tech manga company is that you won't have as large an impact compared to working at a startup, for example. In startup world, it may look something like this. Hello there, I have an excellent idea. Oh wow, what's your idea? Let's have a team meeting to talk about the idea. This is so good. We all agree that we should do this idea. There's a 10 to 20% impact on your top line. Amazing! Now, in big tech world, it will look more like this. Hello friends, I have an excellent idea. Oh wow, let us have a team meeting to discuss your excellent idea. What say you, my esteemed product manager? By that sizing, it does look quite tempting. Perhaps we can start off with an MVP and go from there after we've proven our impact. And what about you, my creatively inclined colleague? No. This is satisfactory. Oh, but wait. What's the policy for such projects again? I think we need to get sign off from like legal and privacy and like the other legal and the other privacy. Yay, we can finally start. I hope it has the 1% impact. So the reason why things are like that are due to 3 different components, and let's talk about them one by one. The first one is impact. Compared to a startup at a big tech company like the manga companies, when you really look at the amount of impact you can actually have, like seriously, 1% is considered like very huge impact if it's on the top line. And that's just because a lot of these low-hanging fruits have already been done. You're now testing out and trying out these non-obvious ways of increasing your top line, or like being more operationally efficient, cutting down costs, etc. Of course, I do have to say a caveat to this is that if you're working on a more innovative area, there may still be low-hanging fruit in that area, but there is like a risk and trade-off here because you do have a lot more opportunities to drive impact. But because the spaces in which these big tech companies are investing in are spaces that are just like super out there, you know, like we're talking about like virtual reality and stuff. So the trade-off here is that you could be working on these things and then, you know, they just don't amount to anything in the end because, you know, those are just big bets. Another thing is the bureaucracy. So yes, it is tech and there is like that mentality of getting things done and moving fast and such, but still, it is still a large company and it has the drawbacks of a large company. Like you need to get all the buy-ins from different stakeholders. And then there's also those increased regulations and checkpoints. And the next reason why things are like this are the regulation changes. Things actually change super quickly in regulation land in a lot of these big tech companies. And these are changes that are driven both externally and internally. So very often just new regulations and things just kind of like pop up. And it is like your responsibility to kind of keep up with what it is that now needs to be signed off before you can like do your thing. I do think that this is very necessary and I think it's a good thing, but because of so many of these regulation changes from like a practical perspective, it can be pretty annoying and distracting because you're trying to like, you know, do your project or finish things before the deadline. So overall, if you want to have really big impact, like clear-cut ways for you to drive massive impact, less bureaucracy so you can move quickly and just not a lot of regulation changes, then big tech and probably just bigger companies in general are not for you. Next reason why you may not want to work in a big tech manga company is that it has really high standards. In this poll where I asked you guys why you would want to work at MANGA, many of you guys put learning new things as your primary reason. And also in my Yuko's really great video, which I'll link below, she also emphasizes the high standards, the caliber is a really big reason why people want to work at these companies. And honestly speaking, 100%, super valid reason. It does have really high standards and you will learn lots of things. People all around you are passionate. So why am I listing this as a reason for why you may not want to work at a manga company? I think in theory, people are like, yay, high standards, you know, I want to learn lots of things and the high caliber. But in practice, they may not have really thought about what it actually feels like to be in that kind of environment. And what it feels like is really high pressure. In many places, it's not enough for you just to do what you're supposed to be doing. You're actually measured by not your efforts, but by the impact that you drive. And what that means is that you can try really hard, but ultimately still not meet the standards because you didn't actually drive any impact. So you gotta be able to stomach that. For example, I have a very talented software engineering friend, but for a variety of reasons, the project that he was working on didn't end up driving any impact. And for that reason, he individually did not meet the expectations for his level. And that's because he was expected to do more than just implement and make sure that the project was done in a very high quality, high standard way. It was also his responsibility to actually drive the direction of that project and make sure that it's going in a direction that will drive impact. You may be thinking, well, he's a software engineer. Like, why does he also have to think about this kind of stuff? And that's the reality. Even if you are a technical person, you're expected to do more than that. As they say, great power comes great responsibility. And you need to measure up to these standards. In addition to that, not all companies, but some companies do also have what is called like a up or out policy. And this just means that if you're not increasing your level and your seniority at a specific pace, then you will probably get fired, which of course is very stressful. I do really encourage you to really think about what high standards actually means in practice. Is your career actually the biggest priority for you? Do you want to do things on the side as well? Trust me on that one, doing things on the side in addition to keeping up with the standards at your day job is very hard. Next reason for why you may not want to work at a big tech manga company is that you're expected to learn very quickly and problem solve very quickly. The way that big tech interviews work is that it's multiple rounds, like usually between 5 and 8 different rounds, which tests you on several different aspects. The questions that they often ask you are very hard and very vague, and this is done on purpose because they're not testing you just on your knowledge and your skills. They're also testing you on how you react to these vague, difficult questions and how good you are at problem solving and working through them. A lot of people end up failing these tech interviews, even though they do really great on the skills and the knowledge side, but it's because they weren't able to demonstrate quick problem-solving skills in face of these hard, vague problems. This is done on purpose because dealing with these hard, big problems is precisely what it feels like to work in a tech company. I was looking at one of these articles that talks about why people eventually leave their tech jobs. And there are, multiple different reasons, but one that really stood out to me was ill-defined projects. Like I said earlier, you're working on the cutting edge of technology, but basically nobody knows the answer where things are gonna go. So naturally, it's kind of like your job to figure out how to define it and then do the project or solve the problem. I get so many asks from different people, like different stakeholders, and they usually come to me with very vague questions that are also questions that I have no idea the answer to either. But what I do is I go like, oh yes, very interesting question. Let me get back to you on that. And then I go and quickly learn and quickly figure it out and then deliver. So yeah, if vaguely defined projects and problem solving and quick learning, which requires lots of your brain cells, is not your cup of tea, then you probably would not like to work at a big tech company. All right, that's all I have for you today. I hope this gives you some insights into whether or not you want to work at a big tech company. Comment below about what you think. Do any of these reasons catch you by surprise? Do you still want to work at a big tech company, or you're kind of like second guessing yourself a little bit on that? I will see you guys in the next video or live stream.